shocking, the most gruesome, spine-chilling ghost story of all time.
Tales of the Dead.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another Geek Syndicate Doctor Who review episode with me, Ant, joined as ever by co-host / king of GS, Mr. Barry Nugent.
Hi. I was trying to downplay the intro. I thought I did pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna, edit in some applause and stuff, and not gonna now.
No need. What I say.
The applause is in your head.
The applause are constantly in my head. It's amazing I can actually get any work done with the amount of applause going on in my head.
So we're looking at episode 8 of Doctor Who, the 2020 series, which is titled The Haunting of Via Diodati. Little bit of Italian pronunciation there for people to correct me on. So the blurb for this one is as follows. Nobody mentioned Frankenstein, nobody interfere, nobody snog Byron. Should be easy, right? The Doctor and her gang arrive at the Via Diodati at Lake Geneva in 1816 on the night that inspired Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The plan is to spend the evening soaking up the atmos in the presence of some literary greats. But the ghosts are all too real and the Doctor is forced into a decision of earth-shattering proportions. And it genuinely said atmos as well instead of atmosphere.
Okay.
I was going to correct it, but I thought no.
If that's what you're going to do, we'll double down on it.
Yeah, they're not my words.
Nope.
So this episode was written by Maxine Alderton, who's a newcomer to Doctor Who scripting. I think her credits mainly in the past have been, or TV credits at least, have been in Emmerdale, which was the same for Phil Ford, who went on to write, loads of stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of didn't have high hopes for this initially, sort of after last week, but it sort of grew on me. What about you? What were your...
So, yeah, I was with you after last week's, and I saw the trailer for this week's, and I'll get into what I was going to say, and I was kind of a bit, yeah, okay, we'll see how we go. We'll get through this one to get to the 2-part finale. Because they've made such a song and dance about the 2-part finale in their trailers. Only 2 episodes to go and all this sort of stuff. So it was almost like, don't worry about this episode. You just need to get through it to get to the 2-part finale. But the more I thought about it before the episode started, the more I thought, you're trying to pull a double bluff, aren't you?
I was caught out by the double bluff, I'll be honest.
Yeah. And I suddenly thought, it's classic magic, isn't it? You've got us looking over there, which is what they've done throughout the season.
Yeah.
You've got us looking over there, whereas actually we should be looking here. And I suddenly thought this episode's going to be much more important than we think it is. So that's kind of where I was going into this episode. And then after about, 5-10 minutes, I started to wane on that belief. Obviously, quickly, my belief was justified. The minute they started talking about glowing figures and stuff like that, I thought it's going to be, and it showed like a glowing figure hovering. I was like, that's going to be a Cyberman, isn't it? That's the lone Cyberman.
See, I should have seen it coming, even without, because I've not watched any of the, 2 weeks to go, 1 week to go sort of trailers and stuff.
Yeah.
But I was completely taken aback by the kind of like, it was about the halfway point, wasn't it, when it kind of changed and switched up a gear in my mind. But I should have seen it coming because we're like the final episode before the 2-part finale, and we still haven't seen a lone Cyberman.
Exactly.
B, it's Frankenstein, which kind of what Cyberman is.
Yeah.
And especially being is because Big Finish did a few adventures with the 8th Doctor with Mary Shelley as a companion.
Ah, okay.
And one of the episodes in that is called The Silver Turk, and it's basically about a kind of like a broken down Cyberman that's in a carnival somewhere. It was like a come and see the strange giant silver man sort of creature feature type thing. So kind of like the ties between sort of Frankenstein and Cybermen have kind of always been in my head. That's one of the reasons why I've always, the Cybermen are my favourite sort of Doctor Who villains, more so than the Daleks kind of thing, because I just found them as a kid. I found them implacable and like the emotionless of them, but the fact that they were people, it just weirded me out. Like, so yeah, so I should have seen this coming and I didn't. And that's entirely on me. And I thought it was well played from my point of view, because it was literally, I was kind of like almost only half paying attention to it, and I was thinking, this is quite a nice, creepy little ghost story and all the rest of it and stuff. And then all of a sudden, when the Cyberman appeared properly, I was like, oh shit, and sort of sat up. And then I quite liked what they'd done with this lone Cyberman as well.
Yes,
in more than one way. So yeah, as I say, it took me by surprise. I had a feeling you'd have seen it coming, because you think about things more from a writer's point of view anyway. But I'm kind of glad I didn't see it coming, because it really
definitely
did make me sit up and take notice.
And I think as well, before we sort of dive into almost like the Cyberman side of things, where, like you say, I think the episode got stronger. However, even without that, I was really enjoying the episode anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was a good, solid sort of Doctor Who ghost story.
Yeah, and I thought, what was it Maxine? What was her surname?
Maxine Alderton.
Yeah, cracking. I thought she did a cracking job, because you had a lot of characters to deal with. That's one of the best episodes I've seen in terms of banter between them all.
Yeah.
Just a little kind of, especially when things got a bit scary. Do you know what I mean? It was just the kind of little bits of banter, little bits of humour, just dropped in. I thought it was really nicely done. And then, like you say, the minute the Cyberman sort of came in, obviously everything just kind of stepped up a notch. The episode was creepy. I really liked the idea of the house almost being a bit of a puzzle box.
It sort of reminded me a bit of that Matt Smith one that was set in a hotel.
Yes.
It reminded me of that, but this was done. This felt like a proper Victorian ghost story, turn of the century ghost story. And I must admit, when I saw sort of the trailer for it, and it was kind of like Mary Shelley, haunted house, yawn sort of thing. Yeah. But it was so well executed, and as you say, the characters in it, everyone was kind of nailed. It's like, Byron was just enough of an arse while still actually being quite charismatic. Sort of thing,
yes.
So,
yeah.
So I think they kind of got quite a good level with everyone. But the thing I really liked is this is actually, obviously it's not what happened, but historically, this group of people, Byron, Mary, Percy, and the Doctor, whose name is it Polidori? Polidori. Sorry, yeah. John Polidori. They were in the house. They'd gone to Geneva. They'd all met up there, and they essentially, it was a horrible night, and they were reading stories to each other from a book of German ghost stories called Phantasmagoriana. And then after that, they kind of challenged each other to come up with horror stories. And ultimately, after a long while, that's where the seeds of Frankenstein were planted in Mary's head, or Mary Godwin, as she was at this point. Although I believe she was actually married to Percy at this point, but they'd eloped, which is why they were referring to her as Mary Godwin still as well. So they weren't officially married, but they were married, sort of thing. So it's historically it was really good, and as I say, when that kind of midpoint came and it ramped up again, it was like I was like really taking notice, and everyone just had their own little roles to play, and like the little groups that they split up into made sense.
Yeah, and again, there was banter when the little group split off and stuff like that. I quite like when someone was like, "Oh, we're gonna have to go down into the coal cellar," and the guy was like, "Can I choose another group?"
Yeah.
But what I liked about it, we've made, again, one of the criticisms we sort of leveled at is when it's trying to kind of get messages across. Sometimes it does it with a sledgehammer. Mm. And what I liked was there was definitely messages that they were getting across in this episode, but I felt it was done in a far subtler way.
Yeah, they weren't intrusive.
No, and definitely like one of the whole point of this was in many ways was obviously to get us to the two-parter, but also to get Mary Shelley to the point where she could get the idea for Frankenstein. Mm. And all of that was done, and the idea that she had this sort of crisis of faith in terms of her writing, that was covered, but it was done in a way so it didn't have like 5 minutes of the Doctor at the end going, and just so that you know, after this, blah blah blah, she went on to write Frankenstein still, and you get what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just left there. Ryan said a few things to her, and we just accepted the fact that actually what happened in that adventure was going to give her the story that she needed to tell Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, and the thing I really liked, actually, this is jumping ahead actually, towards the very end of the episode, was the fact that you kind of had that moment where she tried to reason with the Cyberman.
Oh,
and say, I know it's good and you're all that, and you kind of like, you expected it to be kind of like, the usual kind of, oh, you're right, and the conflict and all the rest of it, but then he just threw that back at her.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
No, and it was kind of that thing of, because of how Frankenstein plays out, you kind of expected it to go the traditional way.
Yeah.
But it didn't. And yeah, I mean, we'll get on to the Lone Cyberman in detail.
But also as well, it was keeping in with what the Cybermen's, their kind of modus operandi. Do you know what I mean? Like, actually, the baby wasn't healthy.
Yeah, and it, it couldn't be converted at that point.
No. So actually, not only it made sense within that sort of twist, but also made sense from the point of view, because obviously, I mean, it is still Doctor Who. Like, you can't have a Cyberman killing a baby. Do you know what I mean? But it was done it worked, so that the baby survived, and yet he still took out the nurse.
Yeah, which was
quite
brutal.
Chilling. Yeah, because for a second, I was like, have they gone there? No, okay. Yeah. But still, still pretty cold. And then just left the kid on the floor. I mean, that's not good. Before we get into the setup for the next episode, one of the things I've got to say, and I've been saying it all since we've started doing these reviews, even going back to the previous series, what I wanted to see was the Doctor being the Doctor that you do not want to be messing about with. And finally, I got to see that Doctor from Jodie. She
had some really standout moments in this episode.
Yeah. When she gave that speech to, I'm not even going to try and sort of repeat it, but when she gave that speech to Ryan, which was, basically, I'm the one who's got to make these choices. You want to make those choices? And you can see them all going, exactly,
Yeah.
And I think
that's why it's not a flat hierarchy.
That was it.
Mountain, and I'm on the top of it.
Yeah, I was like, I liked it. Yeah, sometimes it isn't a flat team structure. I was like, oh my god. Wow. I was like, okay. It's like this. What I loved about it was almost that kind of like, yeah, this has all been fun and games. You've all had a good bit of a laugh, but actually now the fun stops because I'm in charge.
Yeah. And I've got the knowledge and the information to make this call.
Yeah.
And I know that history needs to take track, and we'll sort out the people in the future if and when we can.
Yeah. And I thought it was really good because actually, I thought the way they were going to do the whole Lone Cyberman thing was that she would almost do it by accident.
Yeah.
And then it would be sort of, oh no, that was the Lone Cyberman. Oh no, you've given it. Yeah. But it was the fact that no, it was pretty clear what it wanted. They were telling her, you can't give what it wants because that's what Captain Jack said. And she was like, well, that's tough. I've got to deal with the here and now. This is the here and now. And yeah, I thought that whole scene was brilliant. And her choice reminded me in some ways of the Tom Baker choice. It had that vibe to it.
Yeah, within Genesis of the Daleks.
Yeah. And I love the line, save the poet, save the universe. It's like watch someone burn now or, watch them burn later. Well, actually, I could do something about it later, but I've got to do something here and now. I thought, yeah, it was really, really well done. And she gave another speech a bit earlier where they kind of all, let's all go together. And she's like, no, everyone stays here.
Yeah, I've lost too many people.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it was just, her anger at Cybermen in general after, because you think about it, I mean, from her point of view, I guess, Bill's not that long ago, I suppose.
Yes, good point.
And it's going to be fresh, and going.
And the fact it was a Cyberman that effectively took her out.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, good point. Yeah, they were like her last big bad, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would make sense that they would be fresh. But what a Cyberman to come up against. he's probably one of my favourite Cybermen because he was just proper old school villain.
Yeah, I tell you what I liked. In fact, just thinking about it, and I'm pretty sure that as far as Doctor Who companions go, Cybermen have killed more than any other race. Because not many Doctor Who companions die anyway.
Yeah.
But you had Katarina, she just sacrificed herself out of an airlock. Then Adric died trying to stop the Cybermen. Then Bill. And there's not really been many other deaths, so no wonder the Doctor's got a bit of a thing about them.
Yeah. And wasn't the Cybermen that led to Rose ended up in the other universe?
Yes, it was the Cybermen and Daleks involved in that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, so I can imagine her having a bit of a grudge against it. But yes, I mean, coming back to the lone Cyberman, it's not often really that you see Cybermen as actual characters.
Yeah.
So you've like had the Cyber Controller, who's a little bit more autonomous, and then in the 80s you had the Cyber Leaders. But generally, Cybermen are just Cybermen. But I really liked the fact that this Cyberman was clearly, as the Doctor said, his emotions hadn't been removed yet, and he was just filled with rage and anger, and but also dedication to the cause and his mission.
Yeah.
And it just made for a chilling. I said before, Cybermen are implacable. I remember in the Five Doctors just a scene of, the Third Doctor and Sarah Jane running across the whole death zone trying to get away from the Cybermen, just basically walking after them because they didn't need to run. They're never going to get tired.
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me. But this dude's on another level.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
mean, some of his one-to-one conversations with the Doctor were great. But like I said, the standout scene was the conversation he had with Mary, because you really thought it was going that way.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh yeah, he's reasoning with them and stuff. She's getting through, and this is where Frankenstein comes from, and you can see it all. And then it just flipped on a dime.
Yeah.
And for a second, even though she's a big character from history and she'll be all right, just for a second, I was like, he's going to snap her neck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's just going to take her. Yeah, he was just ruthless and brutal, and just that, I say, that rage. And I loved the fact that like half the helmet was broken, and you could see like the kind of the grey skin with the scars on it, and you could see one of his human eyes.
Yeah.
Because that, especially in that scene, there was that moment, and I was looking in his eyes, and fair play to the actor. I'm not sure if he's credited on here. He's not credited on the cast list on iPlayer, but fair play to him, because he got so much emotion through it. It's like you say, that scene with Shelley, just the look in his eye, you thought, yeah, she's getting through to him. And then when he flipped, it was just like his eyes were completely different. Yeah. It was like, wow. So, yeah, I mean,
he's one of those, because obviously, they've had the Master, and we've seen it, but he's one of them, and he's obviously not a new villain, but in some ways he is, and I almost kind of don't want to see him get taken out. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like with this new series, I think he's a great foil for the Doctor, and kind of brings out a side of her that I really liked. And it looked from the clips they showed in next week's episode that he's still in it. Because what my worry is that he was just going to get the stuff, go back, and then all of a sudden the next episode she's still with armies of Cybermen. We never see him again. But I hope that isn't the case.
I think that they've deliberately made him too much of a character.
Yeah.
To go down that road now, and I was not expecting it. To be honest, I wasn't expecting to like a Cyberman that's got emotions to that level.
Yeah.
Because people always used to say in the 80s, the Cybermen got a little bit too emotional because it was like excellent and stuff like, and they seemed to feel pleasure at stuff, but it was more that kind of logical, I've done my job pleasure. Whereas this was, as I say, it was another level, and like you say, he was such a good character, such a good foil, because it's kind of like you can compare him almost to the Master a bit, in that the Master pushes the Doctor's buttons, but at the end of the day, he's a flesh and blood Time Lord.
Yeah.
So ultimately, if the Doctor got angry enough, or if she was, say, the ruthless Doctor, she'd just take him out.
Yeah.
Whereas, how do you do that with a Cyberman?
Yeah.
You know, because they deliberately making them, you know, over the last few years of Doctor Who, they've been making them kind of like stronger and stronger and more of a powerful force. Not that they weren't powerful to begin with, but, you know, they had the, you know, you could take about gold and that kind of stuff, like, you know, but just having that implacability and that dedication to cause, and just that fact that although the person's clearly still in there, but you cannot reason with him at all.
Yeah.
You know, there's no kind of like, with the Master, you could, if he was going too far, you could probably talk him off the ledge of destroying the entire universe, because at the end of the day, he wants to rule the universe.
Yeah.
But this Cyberman, I could see destroying the universe if he got in his head that that's what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like is he won.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, and I think the fact was, and I quite liked the, whatever it was, I was going to say the liquid mercury, but you know what I mean, the
Siberium.
Yeah, that's it. I quite liked when she was kind of holding it. It was like hovering over her hand, and he was kind of holding it out and stuff. And that he was just going to level the Earth. But you didn't know if it was a bluff.
Yeah, and that was the thing you didn't know, because it's like there was a line, I always remember a line in Remembrance of the Daleks where the Doctor says, you know, about that the Daleks got a mothership in orbit that could crack the Earth open like an egg, but because they're from the future and they know the Earth survives, even they would hesitate before making such a drastic alteration to the timelines.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought he was going to crack the Earth open like an egg.
So did I. I actually thought that was almost going to be the cliffhanger, that he was going to wipe out an air to get, you know, and they got out of Dodge, they got in the TARDIS, but he just took out Earth, and it was like, what do we do now? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You know,
but it's kind of that thing of, you know, when you're someone who makes the Daleks look reasonable and rational.
Yeah, something's not good. And also, he left me the biggest question I had as well, which I think will get answered: who sent the stuff back in time?
Well, that was kind of hinted at from Jack, wasn't it? Because he said that the rebels had stolen something and sent it back in time.
Yeah, but my thing is that who specifically? Because I don't think it's just going to be a random rebel.
Oh, okay, that's what you mean.
You know what I mean?
It'll be Rogue One.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a whole spin-off show now.
Jyn Erso will be there. Hacking into the cyber computers to get the Siberium out.
Star Wars crossover that we didn't know we needed. But I wonder if it's going to turn out to one of these things where it's one of these weird situations where it's the Doctor sending it back, or it's Ruthless Doctor sending it back. You know. Also, we've got the Lone Cyberman, but still nothing about Timeless Child. It's going to be a big old two-parter, because I can't imagine the Master's not going to come back in that.
No.
And also, I can't imagine Ruthless Doctor's not going to come back into that.
Exactly, yeah. I think they've got a lot to do. Weirdly, I would normally be saying at this point, and I'm not sure if Chris Chimble's got it in him. However, I think it's just going to be good.
I'm really looking forward to it, and I've got to say, this was one of the first episodes that wasn't co-written by Chris Chibnall either. It was just Max.
Yeah.
And it was cracking effort. I'd love to see more from her, because, as I said, I think she handled the characters really well, and there was some really good dialogue, meaty dialogue for the Doctor, and I feel like it gave Jodie a chance to kind of stretch herself a little bit in terms of the anger side of things, because when they did the Christmas special with the Dalek, it never, the rage that she should kind of have towards the Daleks never really manifested itself in the way that I would have wanted it to, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
And I felt like this was what I wanted to see.
I remember talking about it on the review we did of Resolution, where, you know, there was one great scene where they were talking over the comms. Yeah. And it was heading in the right direction, and then all of a sudden it kind of went on to, oh, now I'm tracking you, woohoo, sort of thing, and it was,
yes,
it just that cheapened it. Yeah. Whereas here it was allowed to play out.
Yeah. There was none of the, normally when she's delivered kind of close to, like, you know, say a bit of a dramatic scene like this, it's kind of undercut with a little bit of comedy. Yeah. It kind of undercuts the dramatic tension that you've built up in that. And there was none when she gave that big speech to, like, Ryan and the others. You were almost waiting for the one-liner at the end, and there was none of that. It was like, I'm done. That whole kind of jokey stuff. No, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And when she was having a conversation with the Cyberman again, she still did a bit of that, but it just worked. And that's what I mean. I think some of it was her direction she's probably been given, and some of it was just down to the dialogue that she was being handed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think she had a lot more to work with, and
yes.
him.
Yeah, the two that, and as I say, it was just some brilliant kind of altercations. But I think part of it as well, like you say, 'cause she had like the witty one-liners and the banter and the jokes and stuff with the Cyberman, but it was kind of coming from that kind of center of she's kind of like on the defensive and she's off kilter, and she's using it as a humor to keep talking.
Yeah.
Just to keep stalling and to keep trying to think of something. And that's why it worked. It wasn't just kind of like, oh, pithy one-liner, here we come, sort of thing. Like, you know, the other thing I really like is, and it's been a little bit of a running theme through with these kind of like newer Doctors anyway, is the fact that she's just so angry in that speech about being the one that has to make the decisions.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to. Whereas you look back and like the Seventh Doctor was basically all about being that controlling person who made those decisions. And the Second Doctor would make those decisions without really thinking about it as well. So there's something about these new series Doctors that they've almost like they've had enough of doing that, and they just want a quietish life sometimes.
Have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In case people haven't noticed, I really, 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 really like this episode.
Yeah. There was another show, not tell bit, that I really liked, was at the end where she's saying, I can drop you off. I'm going after the Cyberman, but I can drop you lot off. You don't have to come with me and whatever.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly what they say back to her, but it's not, there was no big speech. There's no, we're coming with you. It was just what they said was enough to say, we got your back.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by when the dialogue is tight like that, you're showing, not telling.
Yes.
And I feel this is what this episode did really well. There was a lot of showing, not telling. Even where one of the ladies, and I've forgotten her name, basically tells Byron to do one.
Yeah, yeah.
The way she says it, there's no big speech. It's just like, the spell is broken, sir. Do you know? It was like, that's all I need to say on the matter.
Yeah.
And then the bloke who's with her kind of just looks at him, and again, he's like, I don't even got nothing to add, mate. You're an arse.
He's kind of, he opened his mouth as if he's going to say something, and then just shook his head and walked off.
Yeah. And again, that's what I mean. It's there's enough there. It doesn't need to double down on stuff, which is what I feel sometimes when it does that, it cheapens your setup. And I feel like it never really did that in the episode. It never cheapened anything with an extra line. The emotion never outstayed its welcome.
No, everything was there for a purpose.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic episode. Definitely, I think my favourite episode this series, I would say. If not, in fact, probably for the last two series as well, and even maybe going back further. So
yeah, I was trying to think what was my episode that I really liked this season, because obviously I like Spy 4. It was the one with Captain Jack. That was one, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Jadoon.
The Jadoon one. Yes, I would. I'd probably put them on I'd put them on a par with this one, slightly more so, just because I got to see more from Jodie. Whereas I feel like with the last one, a lot of the reasons why I liked it was because of Ruthless Doctor.
Yeah.
Whereas I think this was one you got to see Jodie kind of, we got to see that more kind of tortured side of the Doctor, and more of that kind of, this is why I'm in charge and you're not.
Yeah. And I really hope they double down on it as well, and we don't just get a revert to type almost.
Yeah, I hope so. So I think that pretty much covers it.
I think so, yeah. I've got no other points noted down that I wanted to raise. So
2 episodes to go.
Yeah. That's it for The Haunting of Via Diodati. Thanks again, B, for joining me and having a chat. Good as ever.
Thanks for having me.
And we will talk to you all when we review the next episode of Doctor Who. You can find us as ever at the Geek Syndicate website, on the Geek Syndicate website even. You can email us, thegeeks@geeksyndicate.co.uk. You can find us on Twitter, which is Barry is at Geek Syndicate and I am at WedgeDoc. Let us know what you thought. Let us know anything you want to let us know, or even if you just want to have a chat, fire us an email, get in touch with us on Twitter. We are there. So I think that's it then.
That is it. Stick a sonic screwdriver in us. We're done. Maybe not stick one in us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've weirded me out now.
Okay. Sorry.
It's usually me who does that to you, to be fair.
Yeah. Sorry. Let's get out of here.
Bye.
Bye all.